Hey, what's up, family? It's your favorite uncle, cousin, Tyrone Gregory, back at it again, here with another video. And this time, I am going to be doing my very best to convince you of the fact that you do not need an LLC to start your business or any other kind of business structure for that matter. This is something that I feel is truly important, something that I think every aspiring entrepreneur or anybody who's looking to start a business should know. This is something that I wish somebody would have told me when I was just getting started out. So let's go ahead and get to today's video. Why you don't need an LLC. There are plenty reasons to form an LLC. However, those reasons are extremely specific and strategic. You don't form an LLC just because your friend told you so, or you heard an advertisement on the radio, you went to a seminar, or even if you watched a video and somebody said that if you're starting a business, you need an LLC. That is the incomplete, incorrect, wrong way and wrong reason for wanting to start an LLC. Trust me, as somebody who has been preparing taxes for small businesses over a decade now, I can honestly say with certainty that over 80% of the people who have LLCs don't need one. And what's even worse is the reasoning behind why people want LLCs. I've heard some ridiculous reasons why people want LLCs. As a matter of fact, the inspiration for this video happened because during past tax season, a gentleman came and sat down at my desk and argued with me for 15 to 20 minutes as to why he wanted an LLC. And I did my best to convince him that he didn't. As a matter of fact, the conversation went a little something like this. Hey, boss man, what's going on? How can I help you?
Hey, what's up, bro? I need to form an LLC.
Okay, is there a particular reason why you want to form an LLC?
Yeah, because I'm about to start driving for Uber.
Okay, that's it. You're just going to drive for Uber. You're not going to do anything else. You're not about to buy a fleet, do something other, maybe invest in something, start other businesses. I mean, is that really the only reason you want to start an LLC? Just because you're driving for Uber?
Yeah, man, that's what they told me. I can save a lot of money if I incorporate or start an LLC.
Well, if that's the only reason you want to start an LLC, man, let me honestly tell you, no, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Man, yes, I do.
No, you don't. And that conversation lasted longer than it needed to. So yeah, and that's exactly how that conversation went. So let's go ahead without any further delays. Let me do my best again to try to explain to you why you do not need an LLC. Starting with this question here, I am going to do my best to break down what exactly is an LLC. So let's go ahead and start with the basic understanding of what it is. An LLC is a state level entity, meaning that it is formed and recognized only at the state, not at the federal level. As a matter of fact, when it comes to the government, initially, the federal government treats you like, you know, you're a piece of lint on their shirt. They just kind of flick your way. They really don't pay attention to you. They, get out of here. We don't recognize you, don't know what you are. And if you want to be recognized by the federal government, the IRS, you are going to have to fill out some additional paperwork. The only exception to that, meaning that you won't be required to fill out additional paperwork in order to be recognized, is if you and another individual are the ones who are forming this LLC together, making it a multi-member LLC, you will then be automatically recognized as a partnership. Meaning that the IRS is going to treat you as a partnership. You're going to have to file a partnership tax return, meaning that the earnings and income is going to be reported on a 1065. Each individual gets a K1 and you go on from there. That is the only exception to the rule of being recognized by an IRS. you becoming a multi-member LLC. Outside of that, everything else is the same. So, as you can see, just by forming an LLC, it's not going to give you corporation status, which is the first reason why you don't need an LLC. All right, so moving on. Next, let's break down the name. LLC, which stands for Limited Liability Company. And for purposes of breaking down the name, I'm actually going to do it in reverse order. Going to start with the C and work our way up. So looking at the letter C, we can see that C stands, how about that? We can see that C. That's C stands for company, not corporation. Okay, we can see that's a very distinctive difference. LLC is a limited liability company, not a corporation. However, this just reiterates what I said in the beginning. LLCs are state level entities not initially recognized by the federal government. Okay, does that really make a difference on anything? No, not really. I just thought it was something, something for you to know there. Okay, so anyway, moving on. Next one. The two L's, the limited and the liability. I'm grouping these together right now because those two words together, limited and liability, are what cause people to drool over this particular business structure. The words limited and liability to most equal asset protection. And truthfully speaking, it is if done right. But then when it comes to asset protection, it leads me to ask the question, what exactly is an asset? Well, according to Google, an asset is property owned by a person or a company regarded as having value and available to meet debts, commitments, or legacies. Now, let me go ahead and break that down, because when it comes to forming LLCs, that is the biggest reason why people want to form LLCs. They always say they want to protect their assets. And then it kind of, I don't want to sound mean or anything, but I'm like, we really got to go through and understand what an asset is. Do you really have any assets to protect? Meaning that if you're renting, you don't own the building. Right? You're renting it. You don't own it. It's not your asset. If you are still paying your car note or you're leasing the vehicle, you don't own that. You don't own the vehicle. And if you think I'm playing, don't pay the car note. Don't pay the lease agreement. See what happens. Remember, an asset is something that you own outright, free and clear. You have the title. It's yours. You have the pink slip. Renting and still paying car notes, that is not an asset. Even if you're in a house and you're paying a mortgage, you don't own that home until the mortgage is paid off. Again, if you think I'm playing, don't pay that mortgage and see what happens. You need to own it free and clear in order for it to be considered your asset. So think about that. When you're trying to say, hey, I need asset protection, do you really have any assets? Yes, we may own jewelry and things like that, but if it's not worth, thousands of dollars, then are you really trying to protect it? So if you're thinking of starting an LLC just for purposes of asset protection, really do an inventory and see what assets do you have. Think about it. Can you convert that item that you're thinking about? Can you convert it immediately into cash to pay a debt, a commitment, or a legacy? If the answer is no, well, then you really don't have no assets to protect, and therefore you do not need an LLC. Okay? Moving on. The liability, that word, which leads to the question, what can we be liable for? And truthfully speaking, as a business or an individual, there are a lot of things that we can be liable for in the course of our business. But the most of the things that we can be liable fall under three particular categories, and they are criminal liability, contractual liability, and tort liability. And let me go ahead and explain those to you. Criminal liability is when you or your company has broken the law. Whether you've done it on purpose or by accident, the law was broken and punishable actions can and will be taken. Okay, that is criminal liability. Contractual liability means that you entered into a binding contract and you and or your company did not hold up your side of the agreement, causing the other party to be wronged or damaged financially or whatever, some sort of way. By you not holding up your end, the other party got a negative impact. So that is contractual liability. And tort liability. This is the one that we are the most afraid of. This is the one that, for purposes of forming an LLC, that we try to avoid. Tort liability. This one is when liability comes about when everyday folks, like the ones pictured here, are using our products and services and somehow, some way end up being wronged or some sort of damage has happened to them. And this is mostly brought about by negligence, either again on purpose or by accident, which is why we fear it the most, because we do our best to make sure that every box is checked and every T is crossed and every I is dotted, but somehow, some way, as Murphy's Law dictates, whatever could go wrong will. And so tort liability covers that. Tort is different than criminal because criminal is more against the government. They've set the laws, we have broken them. Tort is against the individual. It's more of a civil type matter than it is a criminal type matter. So that's the one that we fear the most, tort. So those are the liabilities. That is the L in LLC, the middle one, the liability. Now let's look at the last word, limited here. You know, limited means that there is a confined amount of space. It's not a real large range. It's not extremely open. It's limited. It's a confined amount of space. But also limited means that there is room within that confined amount of space for things to happen, which also means that even though it is limited, you can still be held responsible for the liabilities, those three liabilities that we just spoke about. So just because it's limited does not mean that you are going to be absolved of anything. There is not anything that is going to be 100% protected. Yes, it is limited, but it is not 100% protection. You can still be held personally reliable or personally responsible for any of those liabilities that we just talked about. And if the LLC isn't properly structured, then anybody can do what we call piercing the corporate veil. So, as you can see, forming an LLC will not give you 100% protection, which is reason number 2 why you don't need one. Moving on. Here we're going to talk about everybody's favorite, LLCs and taxes. And for purpose of LLCs and taxes, I'm actually going to be talking about a particular type of LLC, one that I like to call a SMLLC. SMLLC. You know what? Let me just show you, because my pronunciation is off today. Here I'm talking about the SMLLC. That's why I was trying to bring all those words together and make one single sound. SMLLC. I don't know, but SMLLC, which stands for Single Member LLC. This particular LLC is formed by one individual and one only, because remember, the minute you bring on somebody else, you are immediately considered a partnership and you will be taxed as such. So, single member LLC is what we are talking about here today in this particular scenario. And when it comes to taxes, please note that a single member LLC is the same exact as a sole proprietor, meaning that there is no significant difference. A single member LLC is held by the same laws, the same theories, the same application as a sole proprietor. As a matter of fact, both the single member LLC and the sole proprietor will both be filed. All of their income and deductions are going to be reported on a Schedule C. No actual difference. And you know what that means? Both the single member LLC and the sole proprietor, because they are the same, is still going to be subject to self-employment taxes. So, as you can see, forming an LLC will not get you any kind of special tax treatment, which is another reason why you don't need one. And real quick, on a side note, I also want to tell you this when it comes to LLCs. You cannot pay yourself a wage and deduct it. When you make money from the company as a single member LLC, same as a sole proprietor, it's called a distribution. And that does not reduce the amount of money you will pay tax on. Doing so will not reduce your self-employment taxes, okay? As far as the Internal Revenue Service is concerned, the amount of a profit a sole proprietor earns is the same exact as the business earnings. So whether those funds are held in a business account or in a personal account, they are treated the same. Now, I know that there are videos out there that say, hey, this is how you pay yourself in an LLC. Write yourself a check, write it off on your taxes, blah, blah, blah. No, and I'm not saying, I don't like to call people liars. I don't want to do anything like that. I'm just assuming that maybe that they haven't got to the section of the law that explains that. So let me just show you this here. Here is the IRS publication 334. This is chapter 8, page 34. And you can see right there, it says you cannot deduct your own salary or any personal withdrawals you make from your business. As a sole proprietor, you are not an employee of the business. Remember, LLCs or single member LLCs are the same exact in the eyes of the IRS. They are bound by the same laws and regulations. Therefore, if you cannot do it as a sole proprietor, you cannot do it as a single member LLC. So again, as you can see, and I guess I'm going to be saying so as you can see a lot, forming an LLC really does nothing for you as far as taxes goes. Again, and I'm not deducting anything. It does nothing for you. And that is yet another reason why you don't need one. Moving on. It does look good on paper. I know, I get it. You got your company letterhead, and on that letterhead, you see this. Your company name, comma, LLC. And it looks good. It looks prestigious. It adds, like, you know, makes you pump your chest up a little bit, walk with your head high, because whoo, it looks good. I have an LLC that makes me a CEO or whatever. I'm the owner of this legitimate business. And you know, I get it. It looks good. Looks good there. Looks good on your email signature. It looks good on your business card when you present it. But that's it. You know, there's this myth that surrounds forming an LLC or any type of business structure for that matter. This myth states that as soon as you form this LLC and everything becomes legit, you'll have immediate access to things like additional capital. You'll be able to go to the car lot of your choice, talk to the fleet manager and drive off with a brand new luxury car or a fleet of them for that matter. There's the myth that says that investors are going to come running to you with money in their hand, just wanting to give it to you, immediately ready to invest because you have this business structure. And the worst one of all, that I personally believe is the worst one of all, is that if you have poor personal credit, well, that's okay because you'll have immediate access to business credit. That is ridiculous. Those are what I like to call false truths, meaning that it is true. All of those things can happen. However, they exaggerated that so much that it's a lot because it's not going to happen immediately. To get those things to happen, it is going to take capital to get access to capital. You are going to have to put in a lot of time, a lot of work. There's a lot of strategy that goes into building that, especially with the business credit. You know, a lot of things when you're first building your business credit depends on your personal credit anyway. So yes, again, it can happen. I'm not saying that it cannot, but listen to me. It is going to take time. It is going to take a strategy, and you are still going to have to do some things personally for those things to happen. So, as you can see, forming an LLC does nothing for you as far as fame and riches goes, which is another reason why you don't need one. Let's go on to the next. Additional cost. This one is straightforward. LLCs aren't free, nor are they cheap. As a matter of fact, most states require that you pay what's called an annual franchise tax fee or a minimum tax just for the privilege of having an LLC formed in their state. Take the golden state of California that I live in, for example. Just to have an LLC at the end of your company name is going to cost you a minimum of $800 per year as of the date of this video. $800 per year. And that's whether you make a profit or not, just for having the privilege of having LLC in your name. And also consider another additional cost. Additional tax preparation fees can be included when you're having an LLC. And I know you're thinking, well, Uncle Cousin, you just said that an LLC is the same as a sole proprietor, is going to be on the same form as Schedule C, so why is there a different charge? Excellent question, excellent thinking, and you're absolutely right. But remember, LLCs are state level entities, okay? They are not initially recognized at the federal, which is why they're saying, but at the state level, they are recognized. And so therefore there will be additional forms for your state taxes. Like California, every time you have an LLC, yes, you're going to do a Schedule C on the federal, but there is going to be an additional state form added to the California return. And because of that, there's going to be additional fees on your tax preparation. So definitely keep that in mind. So as you can see, forming an LLC does nothing for you as far as saving money goes, which is another reason why you don't need one. Moving on. Well, when? Okay, so at this point, I know you're probably saying to yourself, you know, you've given us plenty good reasons why we don't need an LLC. So when are some reasons, or when would be some good ideas to actually form an LLC? And that is a good question. And trust me, there are plenty reasons, like I said in the very beginning, to form an LLC. So I'm going to go through and give you some of my top reasons for forming an LLC. And please keep in mind that this is not an exhaustive, I cannot say that word. This is not a definitive list, so to speak. I can pronounce that word a lot better. This is not a definitive list, so let's just go ahead and run through a couple of scenarios where you would actually want to use an LLC type business in the beginning. And here they are. Dealing directly with the living as opposed to the dead, I guess, unless you specialize in zombie apocalypse. But what I mean by this is when you provide a product or service that can have a physical negative outcome, meaning that it can cause injury, illness, or worse to anything living, humans, animals, plants, insects, etc. So if you are in one of these type of professions, you would want to consider forming an LLC. And these are professions like Caterers, think about it. Caterers deal with people and food. So what if there's an outbreak? What if somebody has an allergic reaction? What if somebody chokes on something of your food? Definitely can cause some serious illness or some serious injuries there. So you definitely want to be protected. Property managers. As a matter of fact, LLCs are excellent business structures for those looking to get into real estate who want to do property management, because what if somebody gets injured on one of your properties? You know, what if something happens? Nothing that you've done on purpose. Think about that tort liability. It was just negligence. You thought you crossed all your I's, dotted all your T's, and something still happened on that property. So when in that industry, definitely want to make sure that you have an LLC. Then there's also individuals who are in beauty and hair. I personally have a client. She has an excellent hair care product which stimulate growth, and she showed me the before and after pictures. For her, it worked miraculously, and on her children, she tried it and it did a real good job there. But what if somebody else tries it and it has the opposite effect? So I definitely encourage her to go ahead and start with an LLC, definitely to protect that. And even when you're dealing with beauty and cosmetics, people may have an outbreak, a rash or something like that. So if you're in that industry, definitely consider forming an LLC. And then childcare. You know, when it comes to small children, it takes only a second for something to happen. And if you have a child care and Tommy's over there crying and throwing a hissy fit, and you turn over there around to go see what's going on with Tommy, and then next thing you know, Billy done picked something up and swallowed it, and now he's choking. I mean, things happen in an instant. So child care industry, definitely make sure that you consider forming an LLC. Next, when you want to form it, is when you actually have assets. Remember, we broke down assets, but when you get to the point in your life that you actually have true assets and you are still running your business, then yes, it's time to make that strategic move from sole proprietor to LLC, and make sure you get recognized by the IRS as either S Corp, C Corp, or one of them other legal structures that they accept there when you actually have assets. Next is when you want to diversify. LLCs are perfect for people like me who have multiple businesses all operating at the same time. By using a strategic hierarchy, you can have each venture be placed in its own LLC and keep everything completely separate. So, for example, if you have, you know, the main structure LLC, and you have Corporation A, Corporation B, Corporation C, and something happened with Corporation A, well, Corporation B and C will not be affected because they each have their own structure. You have diversified everything, okay? Next is when you have lots of money. There does come a time, especially for tax purposes, where it just makes sense to form an LLC and become recognized by the federal government, as it will save you money. Now, you will have to do the research on this because every business is different, every venture is different, and you have to know what that number is for you. You have to know when you hit that number, will it make sense to go from sole proprietor to LLC? That is something that only you can know. And trust me, you can ask any one of the Self-Employed Tax Academy students. They'll tell you we've researched that number very well. But even still, it's different for every person. So do the research, understand what your numbers are, look at your taxes, see how much you're paying. If you convert to this LLC, how much will you save, and are the savings going to outweigh the cost? That's what you want to make sure you look at. But there does come a time when you're making that lots of dough, then boom, good to go. Alrighty, family, there you have it. The reasons why you do not need an LLC. I surely hope this video was helpful. If you know anybody who was thinking about considering getting an LLC, make sure that you share this video with them. Be a good friend, save them some time, anguish, and money. Again, share it with them, tell them about it. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions, as always, leave your comments below. I'll make sure I respond. Find me on either one of these social media platforms. And that's it for me, family. I appreciate you, love you, and I will see you in the next video.